So hi and welcome to the configuration and usage screencast for the Mahara Objectfs module. In this screencast we'll focus on the configuration of the Mahara Objectfs with a focus on the Azure Blob Storage backend. The Mahara Object Storage plugin, it's a remote storage file system for Mahara. It's intended to provide a plugin that can be installed and configured to work with any supported remote object storage solution, and it currently supports both AWS S3 and Azure Blob Storage. So starting here with a clean install of Mahara, I'm going to demonstrate the configuration of the Mahara Objectfs plugin with the Azure Blob Storage. So I've already checked out the Objectfs and Azure modules into the modules Objectfs and module Azure directories respectively on a clean install of Mahara. So now we're just going to browse to the plugin administration page and we'll go through the install and configuration. So if we go to the extensions page here, and you can see the modules are here ready to install, so we can install each of those. Okay, now if we refresh that page, we can then go to Objectfs and we have a configuration screen. Now I've already, as per the readme instructions, added the config external file system to the config.php in Mahara. So this has been checked that that's set up. So you can see that it's green here. Now we'll go through some of these basic settings. So enable file transfer tasks. So basically you turn this on to allow the Objectfs to send things to the object storage backend. So enables or disables the object file system tasks which move files between the file directory and remote object storage. And we've got maximum task runtime. For this demo we don't need a lot of time for that, so we just leave that as its default setting. Prefer object external objects. In this case for our demo we don't need to worry about that. That's just if a file's stored both locally and in a remote object storage, read it from the remote. So this setting's mainly used for testing purposes and introduces overhead in your check, so we're just going to leave that turned off for now. So file transfer settings, we have here your minimum size threshold. So this is the minimum size for transferring objects to the remote storage. So if objects are over this size, they will be transferred. So this is useful if you've got lots of little files that you don't want to be retrieved from the back end that aren't being used by external systems or such. You can just keep those stored locally. In this case, for our demo, we're going to install a small file, so we're just going to set that down at 0. The minimum age, that's how long a file has to exist in the local file system before it will be pushed to the remote. Again, for the demo, we're going to want to see the files transfer instantly, so we're going to set this to 0 as well. Delete local objects. So once they are in the remote object storage, after the consistency delay, which is the next field, they can be deleted from your local file system. For the purposes again of the demo, we won't actually see that in operation, so we're going to turn that on and we'll make the consistency delay, set that to 0. So that's how long an object's going to have to exist in the remote location before it becomes a candidate for deleting locally. Okay, so we come down here, you can see that our default file system is already selected as Azure file systems, so we can leave that as it is. And we're going to need to configure our Azure Blob storage settings. So here we're going to need to specify our Azure account name, the container for the blob storage, and the shared access signature. This will allow the system to connect to the Azure blob storage. Okay, so I'm just going to enter these settings for our test account that we use for the demo. And now we will save the form. Now settings have been saved, and we can see if we go down here to settings, we've had some success. It's tested our connection and it could establish a connection to the Azure Object Storage, and the file permissions it could delete from the Azure container. So we're ready to move on. Right, so now we're ready to upload some files. So in Mahara, we can go to Content Files and choose some files to upload, which we can then actually see go through the process of moving up to the block storage backend. Okay, so let's select a file for upload into Mahara. I have a sample PDF document here, which has now been uploaded. Now, at this point, it won't have been pushed up to the Azure backend. It'll still be in the local files container, and we can see that. We can actually go to the Objectfs report and see the status of the files in the file system. So if we go down to Objectfs and again click this gear icon, and at the top here you can see View Object Status. As you can see here on the report, at this point there's no information here. This is because there's a time-based cron job runs in the back end that generates this report every few minutes. So if we just, having had that cron run now, refresh the page, and we can see the status. We can see that we have our one file that we uploaded, which is only in the files directory, and we've got a total of one file uploaded. And the next thing we want to see is that on that time-based cron job, we'll actually push that job up to the object backend. So if we just wait for that to run, and it'll come back, and we can see the file move through the stages of being moved up into the object storage. Okay, so we can refresh this now, and we can see that the file has been moved up and duplicated in the file directory and external storage. So it's existing in both locations, and again, after a certain length of time, cron can come along and delete that locally, because we checked that that checkbox on the configuration page for delete locally stored files. Okay, that should have been performed now, so we'll refresh that page. We can see now that the file's been deleted from the local file directory. So now we can see it here that it exists only in external file storage. So we can be confident that our file has been pushed up to the blob storage backend. It's gone through the process of uploading locally, getting pushed to the backend, and then being deleted locally, and we can track that and see the status of all those files on this report. Thank you.